Flag salute.
Recording in progress.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. So introduction to the board. Marie is on Zoom this evening, and then we'll start with you want to do introductions?
Jeff Michaels on for
Randy Carmody,
Karen Bear.
Kelly Myers.
No agenda revisions this evening. Approval of the board minutes of September 18th. So moved. For a second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Student representative report. Lily.
Hi, my name is Lily Wicker. I'm a senior who is part of leadership and a senior class council member. I'm involved with many after school activities as in HOSA, Green Club, and I do work 2 jobs after school as well. We've been busy with the homecoming and our club fair. We had a successful Spirit Week homecoming game and dance. We held our club fair last Wednesday. All freshmen got to come during advisory as well as the other grades got to come during their different lunch. We have 28 clubs this year and we are participating in our Think Pink fundraiser again this year as well. All funds collected will be donated to a local nonprofit organization called Breast Friends. Each fall sport has a designated Think Pink game where money collected will be donated to that fundraiser. We will be teaming up with the local Kiwanis for our annual food can drive. And thank you again for giving me the opportunity to share this with St. Louis.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You can speak out if you want. Doesn't matter.
I wanted to say.
Okay, no problem. I just most of the time I speak out, so I thought I'd, Superintendent's report, Aaron.
Yeah, a couple things. So as I guess the long anticipated opening of 362nd connection across the highway is here.
We took it here.
A couple people are excited for it. Good. So we don't anticipate it having tremendous impacts on us. As we discussed, I think at the previous board meeting, we made there were a number of revisions that we made to our transportation routes to try to create more efficiencies with those routes this year. We added some bus loop stuff on our property at a couple sites to get them off the road sooner. So I don't anticipate that that's going to have a significant impact on our traffic patterns. But in conversations with Principal Sarah Dorn, traffic at the high school this year hasn't been near what it's been in years past. So, but that said, there are options, and we would just want to make folks aware that there might be maybe have a little bit of patience when you have a new traffic revision. I know when we did the little work that we did here going across 26 when we remodeled Cedar Ridge Middle School, we went from a left-hand turn to a protected left-hand turn, and so that took a little time for folks to get used to as well. So let's take some time. And we're hopeful that it does alleviate some of the traffic issues that we've seen around town lately. As far as transportation is concerned, finding bus drivers still not easy. So I don't know what it would take. Maybe they don't have kids on buses and just have them drive empty. I don't know. It's hard. Bus drivers. That's Randy. Your mom did that for years and years and years, and was the really the linchpin to making that successful for a long time. So it is one of the most difficult jobs I think on the face of the planet, is driving a bus with 60 plus kids behind you, and you're responsible for their safety and trying to get it done in a timely fashion and keeping the bus on the road at the same time. So I know it's going to take. They keep working. We got 3 folks in the pipeline right now. Usually it takes anywhere from 30 to 60 days to get them cleared, to get their license, and then they have to go through the Oregon Department of Education, and they have to pass a background check as well. So we're working on it. We continue to work on it. There are times when we have to consolidate routes. When we do have to consolidate routes, each of our administrators sends a memo home to families, letting them know that those routes will be consolidated. And we hope to mitigate any well, any late students, late arrivals and late pickups to the best of our ability, but in some cases, there's nothing doing. I think Welch's, we had a bus late the other day, 45, 50 minutes. There's just nothing we can do about it. And so puts a lot of pressure on teachers, puts a lot of pressure on administrators, puts a lot of pressure on families, right? Kids sometimes are out there for quite a bit, waiting on a bus, but doing the best we can. School Digger is a school rating website. They rate schools all the way across the country. They stopped during the break, if you will, that we, you guys remember the event that we had a break for a few years there, and they stopped rating schools during that time because everybody was doing something that had disparate strategies on how to operate schools. They've since returned. Prior to that break, we were ranked number 10 out of 193 schools that they had ranked, and they just ranked us 11th out of 206 districts and ESDs, which isn't bad at all. And if you look at school districts that have 3,000 plus students, we're in the top 5. So there's a huge shout out deserving to go out to our teachers, our classified staff, our students, their families for supporting what we do, for on some fronts tolerating what we do, for getting their kids to school every single day, for navigating the transportation, sometimes deficiencies that exist there with us, and to the board for helping us keep this thing on the rails and go in the right direction. So that's a big deal. There are some socioeconomic extremes in our state where some of the median incomes, 280 upwards, and usually those districts are the top performers. And then there's some really, really small school districts, and those districts can also be top performers because when you have 60 kids, you just hold a hand and you walk every one of them across the stage at the end and they all graduate. And then you got a bunch of districts like ours, really in the middle of that. So to finish it even in the top 15 is just a huge win for all of our, against teachers, our administrators, classified, our board, and our families. So very, very proud of that. And Oregon Teacher of the Year is a thing that happens every year. They've been doing that since forever in our state. I don't know how many years. I want to say it's like 50. And that's the teacher of the year for the entire state of Oregon. And so Mandy Vance, BMS/Cedar Ridge Middle School teacher, is the Oregon Teacher of the Year. Very, very proud of that. Very happy for Mandy, very happy for the students that she's had an opportunity to influence. And what that means is that she will now go on I wouldn't call it a tour. Like, that's not really what it is, but it's kind of, right? So she will have many opportunities to travel across the state and other states and talk to other folks about influencing educational policy. And Mandy has a huge passion for being an educator. And so everything she indicates to us is she's going to just continue to plead and be in the face of folks to become educators. So we can do everything in our power to try to overcome some of the shortages that we find. And so she's, her affect is tremendous. She's very affable. She knows how to communicate with folks. She's very relational. So she'll be a tremendous ambassador for the Oregon Department of Education, the Oregon Teacher of the Year program, and for recruitment of all teachers for the state, I think the nation at large. So very, very proud of her. How that works is students nominate teachers in their schools, and then it's a lot of work after that, I think, right? Mackenzie, have you guys seen the work? The work after that is tremendous. You have to do, there's a lot of submissions you have to do as the educator. You have to write personal narratives, you have to give references, and then they narrow it down and they select 19 for each region. And then from there, they select one finalist. So a lot of work on her behalf, and kudos to the kids for recognizing her as somebody they can really look to. And then lastly, but not least, that Amy Quinn, my administrative assistant, the board's secretary for board meetings, is decided to become a teacher. So she is now substitute teaching, and she has resigned her position with us. And fortunately, we are very excited to. She didn't know I was going to do this, I suppose, so she'll probably get really embarrassed, but it'll be fun and funny. And if we can turn the camera on her, that'd be even better. Fortunate that Trisha Erie, right there, Sandy High School graduate, longtime community member, has agreed to be my administrative assistant and the secretary of the board, so we're very excited to have her. She, I'm sure, is now very embarrassed, but she is committed to her current role and wanted to give them some time so she could help train the successor and then give another week on the job to help that person make sure that they know exactly what it is they're doing. To which we said, absolutely. I think I said to her, if you just said to me you could start on Monday, I'd say I don't want you, because anybody that would just kind of abandon the place they're at currently, right, after so many years to jump ship would probably ultimately end up doing the same thing here. And we just appreciate her character and sticking that out and really being true to her current employer. So we believe that's the type of coworker she's going to be for us. So very excited to have Tricia aboard. That's
Any questions for Aaron? Okay, I don't have any citizen agenda cards this evening. Consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
Motion to adopt consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second? Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. No action items this evening. Information and discussion. Facilities assessment. Aaron.
Yes, so also before the break, we had spent a good amount of time with surveying community members, doing facilities assessment, facilities planning, and preparing to present a bond to our community to be voted on sometime during those 3 years when everything was shut down. So our need hasn't changed, despite us not being able to go out and try to have a bond pass, see if we can be successful in that front. There was some, I wouldn't call them low-hanging fruit, but some serious needs that we assessed during that facility assessment. They were still able to attend to the general fund budget. Doesn't make it easy, but we did it. Some of the things are simple. You see them when you go around a community. It's concrete, sidewalks in front of schools. It's ADA ramps. It's those things. It's some siding. It's some repointing, etc. Some of the other things you don't really see, like Nass Elementary School, Morning Middle School used to share the cafeteria space. So you'd go in there and it wiped out 3.5, 4 hours of their day just in lunches. So we remodeled the carpeted gym. It's not new. We just did the interior and it looks nice inside. And then we gutted what used to be some classrooms to convert it back into what used to be the kitchen way back when. And so we were able to relieve that pressure as well from BMS and NAS, relieve that pressure from our staff members and the kids. So we
just took it to walk through the mud every day.
No, if you're not familiar with the process, here's how it went. The kids would, if the kids had lunch like at 10:30 and it was sunny out, they'd walk across the field. If at 10:45 there was a deluge and they walked back at 10:50, they walked back in the mud. But at 10:50, we finally went, oh, it's raining enough, so we'd have a bus on standby. And then some kids might get on a bus to drive around the corner. Anyway, is that about it? Did you go to, and that you remember? How was it, Lily? It was terrible, was it not? We fixed it. Have you seen it since?
No.
We should give you the tour. You'd appreciate it.
My brother's there now.
Oh, good. Does he like it?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Well, see, so at least one family we made a difference for. So we knew that was not low hanging fruit again. It wasn't cheap, but we knew that was a necessity to take that pressure off. So within our general fund budget, we found the resources to make that happen. Other things, stairs at Sandy Grade School, trying to fix traffic patterns at Fernwood, right? So Welch's. Again, Welch's, we couldn't even, our busing really through Welch's has been terrible. Curbs, the diameters were 1940s cut. I don't know when that school was built, but we were able to fix those things. So a lot of things. I'm saying all this because there's a lot of stuff that we still achieved, despite not actually having the resource by way of a bond to achieve those. And simultaneously, the assessment that came back the first time said that it would cost us $71 million to do everything that we needed. Now, we probably chipped away at, $200,000, $300,000 of work. And none of the rest of that has seen improvements. So we do know that it hasn't improved. because we haven't had the resource to improve it. We've had the resources to maintain it. We don't expect this to come back and they say, hey, look, you can do everything you need to do for $20 million. We don't expect that. That's just not realistic. We do expect that they come back and say, hey, to move forward, if you wanted to improve or renovate, refurbish the existing, it'll be $71+ million. It's not going to be less than $71 million. It's just not. Part of the problem we have with trying to refurbish stuff is that some of it's already been refurbished. That's how we've been straightforward, right, for the last, at least my 13 years. So some things you can only refurbish for so long, and the parts don't exist. And then you have to build the parts, and then the cost of building a part becomes exponentially greater than the part off a shelf, right, for systems that already exist. So that's going to compound our issues. What this facilities assessment will tell us, and we're going to use a different company. The company we used last time did a fine job. It was just the way they laid it out was hard. It was just hard for the public to consume. So there was a lot of stuff that was kind of left to interpretation. And we found that when we were having, because we went around and had conversations at all the schools, with all the PTAs, with parent groups, et cetera, there's a lot that we were interpreting in the report. And I don't think it's fair for folks to hear our interpretation of a report. So we're using a group called Soderstrom, it's an architectural firm, and theirs is a little more straight to the point, a little more user friendly on the front end. So we expect to get that back somewhere December-ish, and we don't expect them to say that there's a lot that you can salvage, quite frankly, in a lot of these plants, especially Sandy Grade School. No offense to Sandy Grade School, but that stuff's really kind of design build stuff at this point. Like, you just have to design a new system. You have to build a new system. I don't know that there's any off the shelf mechanical parts that we can just throw in a Sandy Grade School. Electric is electric. We could drill holes. We could put conduit in, those things. But when it comes to the HVAC, I think that's a bit of a non-starter. So we do expect the report to be robust. We don't expect there to be any surprises. And I don't expect anybody in here to remember the report from the first time. That wasn't your job, right? But we don't expect any surprises internally. So once we get that, and we're probably December-ish, maybe the beginning of the new year, as we hope to have this back. Once we get that, we'll take a look at it. We'll compare it to what we believe we had the first time. So we'll be able to then present to you and say, hey, here's what this new report has highlighted. Here's what the old report said. I would expect to say, hey, if this old report said you have 10 years left, and this new report says you have 2. Right? It would be a miracle if they went, hey, you had 10 years then, but now you have 30. I don't know. That's not the way mechanical systems. That's not the way electrical systems. That's not the way plumbing works. I mean, you were in construction. That doesn't work that way, right? Okay, good. Okay, good. So we don't expect that, but also we don't expect any surprises. So we'll come back to you. Why this is important to do is because if at some point in the near future we decide we're going to go out and try to get a bond, there's some matching grants through the state. I think upwards of $6 million that we can get, but you have to have this assessment to even begin to apply for those dollars, right? So you say, well, what does $6 million do on top of 71+ million? Well, I'll tell you what it does. It makes that 65 million. That's what, and 65 is better than 71. And so if you ever built a $78 million school, you recognize that anywhere you can save money and or have some of your costs reduce, right? That's a precious opportunity that you don't want to waste. And we went through the the value engineering process of this building and removing things so we can continue to save on some of the expense. You recognize that you shouldn't be stepping over pennies, quite frankly, in many cases. So we're excited to get that project underway. And what's next? Once we get the product back, then the next thing would be some facilities planning, taking a look at what is it going to take. Let's take a look at how we might plan and move forward and program for some of those upgrades within the context of that assessment. Then if we get down the road and go, okay, we absolutely have to do this, then yes, of course, the next thing would be, okay, let's see, how do we start framing this potential bond, right? What's that conversation look like around a bond? And at some point, it's just going to be inevitable. There are 2 ways to go. We can keep putting portables on sites, which we can do pretty easily. When we say a portable is free, we do get the portables for free, but the cost of putting, somebody's chuckling, but the cost of putting a portable in is gonna cost you anywhere between like $280 and $400,000. Depending on where you put it in, depending on the codes, depending on the needs of that portable, right? So they're not cheap, they're free, but they're not cheap. And so we could continue doing that. It's not the best environment for kids. It's not the best environment for security, it's not the best environment for staff. But it works, right? And in some places, that's all they do, they're just in portables, you know, when I went to school in San Jose, we like 15 classrooms in portables. You just knew that's just what you did. It's not historically what we do in Oregon, it's not what we want to do in the Oregon Trail School District, however, we continue to expand as we have been doing, and it gets tight. That's gonna be our first priority, is to create space, but we'll look at doing it through modular facilities, unless and until we get to a point where we believe it's the right time to pass a bond and can pass a bond.
Are we working towards an enrollment study as well to get those?
So when you submit for these grants, right, they want you to have a population study conducted. We have a population study that I think is like in year 4. And I think those are good for maybe 10 years. So what we'll do, because of the hiccups, we'll try to see if we can't use that study, because that space and time kind of put a lot of things on pause. And I don't know that there's a lot of confidence in these studies currently, because you have 40,000 folks maybe unenrolled, and then you get some demographers that are suggesting that we're going to continue, the population is going to continue to decrease, because deaths are going to outpace births in the state for decades and decades. And the way we're supposed to see a population increase, if we see one, is by way of movements, right? So I don't know what to believe there, but we're going to see if we can't piggyback on top of the population study we've already have in our pocket to use that. And so the Legislative Revenue Office, the LRO, they put out lots of information, right? And then demographers do a lot of work, and so you can find that stuff out there about what people believe to be true about the population at large in the state of Oregon. Now, within that, we see it every year. You might have an overall population decrease in the state, but some school districts see an increase in that population, right? There are myriad factors that go into that. Neighboring communities become too expensive for them, so folks go into bedroom communities, right? Bedroom communities might have a greater access to higher density residential than do some of the more metro areas, right? So there are a lot of variables still at play that would impact, I think, our population and specifically enrollment. But I think those are very, very difficult to pin down right now. And the study we have just before the shutdown is probably our best bet at advancing the conversation. And within that, there's going to come a point where the conversation about facilities in our school district isn't about overcrowding. At some point, whether you have 10,000 students or 4,000, you just have to have roofs on buildings, you know. I mean, that's, and I'm not trying to be flippant. I mean, seriously, you come to a point, right, where it's like, okay, do we put a roof on this building, or say, look, we wait until we believe they're truly overcrowded before we do anything, and that'll be part of the dialogue.
Or do you update energy efficiencies and try and get your costs down in there by building better buildings?
Yeah, do you try to recover costs on those things, right? So that's another part of it, is that ROI, the return on that investment. And one of the things, you'll find is that depending on who you work with, like some cases are like, oh, there's a huge ROI on some of the mechanical, electrical components in this building, and then some of them are like, oh, well, you have a return, yeah, and having all these other amazing features will give you a return. Well, when is that? 75 years. Well, a lot can change in 75 years, right? So we have to be very, very careful as well. And there's a lot of Senate Bill 1149 stuff. Tim does a lot of work with the Energy Trust. Scott Coleman does a lot of work with the Energy Trust. Chelsea Lincoln Lane does. And so we're doing a lot of LED fixture upgrades right now. And we expect there to be quite a bit of savings. And we're chasing the increase for our utility companies, because the utility companies continue to increase rates, right? So we're getting savings and we're chasing increases as well. And so I'm not suggesting that the increase is outpacing the savings, I'm just saying that, again, many variables involved here. And we're talking about facilities assessments, where there's spaces that you can recover costs. How do you move forward if you don't have the revenue necessary? And what are the conditions under which a bond might actually trigger folks to go, okay, now's the time. And so when facing, are we overcrowded or do we need new roofs? Like at some point, it's gotta put roofs on buildings. Questions, thoughts, or comments?
Thank you for the report. Moving on to announcements, October 26th is the board workshop at 6:30, November 7th is the OTA board meeting, and November 13th is our next board meeting. Pretty executive session today.
No.
Okay. We will adjourn.
Oh, you got the medal, you got. Did you ever take the bus? Sorry you missed it, but we did.
I think it's a quick thing to go. Thank you.
Hey, Mark.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Everything never not knowing this place. I don't, you never even been around.
Well, I moved.
No, I'm kidding.
I moved to Sandy to boring, but.
Can you hear me, Marie?
So,
Meeting's adjourned, so I'm gonna log off. I just didn't want to close out on you.
My grandma graduated from here.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, so very excited about it.
Right?
I want to keep it too long, but she'll start on the 23rd of October.